Okay, so for this video, we're going to look at the nephron. We're going to look at the beginning of the nephron, mostly in the glomerulus, but we're going to give you a little overview of what happens throughout the entire nephron. So first thing is, when we're inside of the kidney, just to kind of give us an aspect of where we are, here's that cortex. Here is the medulla down here. Okay, if you remember from last lecture. So you have two types of nephrons. One is called a cortical nephron. All that means is the majority of it is up in the cortex. And then you have what's called a juxtamedullary nephron. Juxta means to be close to or next to. So it's closer to the medulla. That's all it really means. We see more of them in the cortical region or the cortex compared to the juxtamedullary, but that's just the identification of where they really are. They both do the exact same job. So when we look at a nephron, we have over 1 million of them in each kidney, and that's good because as blood travels through your kidney, we need to get rid of toxins, we need to get rid of waste, and we need to hold on to anything else to keep our blood at homeostasis. So this entire picture is a look at one nephron. And they're so small in shape, but on pictures we magnify them so we can actually see what's going on. So a few definitions just to go through. One is called filtration, which is what we're going to cover today, which happens in the glomerulus. And what happens with filtration is we're pulling almost everything out of the blood and putting it into filtrate. So surprisingly, the way that your kidneys work is we want to pull as much out of the blood to start, and then we're going to do what's called reabsorption, which means we're going to take it from, so this is what waste will become, and then we would, get that out of the kidney. What we're going to do is we're going to take back, which we call reabsorption. We're going to reabsorb everything out of that waste and put it back into the blood. We also have what's called secretion, which we'll talk about later on, but that is, that's where we take it directly from the blood and put it into the urine further down the road. And we'll see when that happens. That's what we use to get rid of drugs, unused antibiotics, and poisons, toxins, stuff like that. But we'll talk a little bit about that. But secretion is going from the blood directly into the what we call filtrate. And then we have what's called excretion, which is down here, which just means sending it out of our kidneys and bringing it to our bladders. Okay, so those are just a few terms that we will kind of see moving forward. So let's talk about the glomerulus, which is the most important thing for today's lecture. The glomerulus is this whole structure. It's this structure right in here. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so that is a large clumping of capillaries. Now remember, capillaries is where we see gas exchange, nutrient exchange. So that's going to be where we see our filtering happening of the blood. So blood's going to come in through the afferent. It's going to get filtered throughout all this area right in here, which means it's going to pull almost everything out of the blood other than a few things, which I'll talk about on the next slide. And then it's going to leave the glomerulus through what we call the efferent arteriole. Remember, we kind of saw afferent and efferent with neurons. So afferent is bringing the blood into the glomerulus. Efferent is taking it out of the glomerulus. Now, it's going to filter everything except for really two things: large proteins and red blood cells. Mostly all blood cells, I should say. We're not going to put large proteins into the filtrate. They will stay inside of the blood, and also our blood cells will stay inside of there. Pretty much everything else is coming out of your blood. Stuff that's coming out is water, glucose, amino acids, ions, waste, excess ions, anything that we need to get to homeostasis, we have coming out in the filtrate. And it may seem a little confusing, like why would we take it all out of the blood just to put it back in? This is a way of our body regulating homeostasis. It's really the only way. So we pull it all out of the blood and then we're going to reabsorb and put it back in. So when that blood comes in, so let's say the blood is coming in this way, we're going to take almost everything out of that blood, which includes all of this. And then you can see here down the road, we're going to start reabsorbing that. So we're going to put that back into the blood. Okay. So just to finish up with the glomerulus afferent coming in, right? Oop, we lost that because it's red on red. Okay. What's going to come out is all of that glucose, ions, salts, anything else, water, waste, and it's going to go into what's called the Bowman's capsule. Now, the Bowman's capsule is this big horseshoe-looking thing, right? And that does not pertain to blood. This is blood. The red is blood. Okay, and the yellow is now what we call filtrate. And that filtrate is going to move throughout this nephron, and we're going to reabsorb the stuff that we want to take back into our blood. Okay, so just one more time, Bowman's capsule does not have blood in it. It has what we call filtrate. So it's going to have water, the salts, the sugars, all of that stuff. And then as we move down the road in the nephron, we're going to be reabsorbing some of that. Okay, so just to go back to this slide, everything in yellow is filtrate. And what your kidneys are going to do is going to decide, okay, what are we going to reabsorb back into the blood, which would be here, and what are we going to keep in that filtrate, which then will become, whoa, how did I do that? Which will then become your urine, okay? And it's a little bit of a long process to explain it, but I think once we get to the end of it, you'll understand. So today's big thing was pulling everything out of the blood and producing this filtrate.